When I returned from Iraq in '04, there were probably a dozen guys in my unit that lost their jobs within the first 2 weeks. And people say, well, there's laws, that can't happen. It does happen. But usually employers look for some other reason. For whatever reason, they don't want you back, so they'll look for you were late 2 days in your first 2 weeks, or you missed something. They look for some other minor reason to get rid of you, but in reality, they're getting rid of you because you just served in the military. But in Kevin McGee's case, to fire him the day he returns to work and then try to make it look like something else, huge PR mistake for a county agency?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, gee, are they on the ballot this year?
No.
No.
They just got
if
off.
they were on the ballot this year, I mean, you're a vet, would you vote for them?
Well, it certainly would become a big issue.
Would it be a consideration? Absolutely. I mean, it's just, maybe the guy did something where he deserved to be disciplined or fired because he wasn't doing a job right. I'm not denying that. That's something that, any employer is between the two of them. But the fact that, I say this as a manager, you take into account what the timing is. You don't do something. You don't fire someone, the day before their wedding. You don't fire somebody when they come home from burying their father. You don't fire somebody, the day after they have the birth of a child. You pay attention to this kind of stuff. And for an agency that purports to help people with developmental disabilities to show such gross insensitivity to a class of people that go out and serve this country, and this is a class of people who serve their country, to show such insensitivity to that, I think is alarming. It's just stunning.
And I don't think, the charges that they brought up had to do with, supposedly wiped out some information on a computer, but he says it's, it was personal information because of the work he had worked in public relations, sort of with the National Guard. The charges just don't seem to be all that, devastating. Where you need to fire someone immediately. I agree. I don't get the
Well, in your story,
concept.
he claims that he's been given grief really since he started in the military, or since
pretty much. He felt that there
agency.
was a change there in the way that he was being treated, and
And they had a change in management, I think, and did they say something about that?
he said he's been working with the director there for
6 years?
Yeah, something like that. They've been together a
6,
long
7
time.
years.
They've been together a long time, and felt that the relationship was strong. And I mean, Kevin McGee is certainly a unique individual, to say the least, and he brings a lot of energy there. Obviously, there's some kind of discord there between him and the director, and maybe a separation was needed, but certainly you don't want to handle it the way that.
But for a public agency, the attorneys didn't raise a flag and say, "What are you doing?" And none of the executive staff did this. Nobody on the board did this. I mean, this is not like you're firing the night custodian. With all due respect to night custodians, you're firing someone who's a part of your executive level team, who makes $100,000, who's actually in the board meetings when they hold meetings. How does no one step up and say, we can't do this to a guy who's just returning from duty?
I think the answer is they didn't consider the PR portion of this decision because they were firing the PR guy. If it had been anybody else, Kevin's job would have been to raise the exact issue you just raised about the court of public opinion.
Do you really think you need a PR guy to tell you this?
Of course not.
I mean,
but in
come
a
on.
business world, people make business decisions without thinking about the PR consequences. That gives us great topics for this show, Ed.
There are people on
all the time.
There are people on that board who are business people who have these exact same considerations in their businesses. If they don't take this into consideration for him, what does that say about the way they treat their people at their businesses? This is how this discussion goes above and beyond. If they're willing to treat people like this, who serve the country in uniform, what does that say about the way they're willing to treat the people who are still at home?
It says they
Well, I
didn't
think they actually.
think about it.
Let's face it. They knew about the public relations reaction to this, and they didn't care. They're not on the ballot, and they know in 4 or 5 years when they go back on the ballot that the public are not going to remember Kevin McGee. They're not going to care about whatever settlement may come out of this, and they're going to approve the levy, just as voters always do when some DD issues come up. I've never seen one
Which
defeated.
shows an arrogance that goes far and beyond, which is why it's always nice to have reporters that actually have a memory who can remind people about this. Because, I mean, if you're doing this right after you get a levy approved, you ought to remind voters of that. I mean, this is part of the record.
All right, we'll continue to talk about it as it goes through the courts and the court of public opinion. Thanks for watching the extended edition of this conversation here on Newsnight.net.